G'day guys, welcome back to the Boundary Riders YouTube channel, and today we of course are here to review round 3. Of course we had a massive round starting all the way back on Thursday night, Collingwood v Brisbane, and we had a massive 5 days of football over the Easter long weekend. So hopefully you guys had a good Easter, but of course let's get to the review of round 3. And like I said, we will start with the Brisbane v Collingwood game. Brisbane did dominate a lot of parts of this game, but Collingwood were good enough to break away in the last quarter and win by 20 points. Final score, Collingwood was 92, Brisbane on 72. Jamie Elliott top scored with the 4 goals for Collingwood. And like I said, at stages, Collingwood did dominate, but in the first half, it was a tale of 2 quarters. In the first quarter, the Pies absolutely dominated the majority of the first quarter and actually took a 4-goal lead into quarter time. And then the Lions absolutely dominated the second term. I think at the end of the second quarter, they had 21 inside 50s to Collingwood's only 2. However, they didn't take a lot of their chances as they kicked 4-goal-5, but that obviously could have been a lot more. And Collingwood were actually kept goalless for the first time in quite a few years actually in this game, in that second term. But in the third term, Collingwood reversed back to control, kicked 5-1 against Brisbane. And then despite Brisbane getting the first goal of the last quarter, midway through the fourth term, Collingwood got 3 goals in a row, pretty quick succession, and were able to claim their first victory of 2024. So this game, of course, was marketed as not only the grand final rematch, but the game that both of these teams, can they find who will break the duck, who will finally get their first win. Brisbane just came off the bye, so they were 0-2. Collingwood were 0-3 going into this game after losing to the Giants, Sydney and St Kilda. You know, 2 pretty tough opponents. A little bit unsure about St Kilda this year. But at the end of the day, they did really well, Collingwood, to win this one. They showed a little bit of pride, which I think the first couple of weeks were non-existent at stages. They brought the pressure and Brisbane couldn't deal with it. I still feel like Brisbane are going to be okay, but starting now at 0-3, it's going to be very hard to make the top 4. Now for Brisbane, they've lost both the start of the season at home, and they don't lose at home very often. So that's very damning evidence now for Brisbane, and I hope they do turn it around, but at this stage, it's 50-50 on if they can. Now, going to the statistics of this game, the AFL Fantasy Front, of course, Lachie Neale top scored with the 118, Hugh McCluggage with the 104, Dane Zorko with the 102, along with Tom Mitchell with the 102, and the last 2 here is Dunkley and Nick Dacos with the 101. And now, of course, we get to the Boundary Riders votes, as we have been doing in this review episodes, guys. We do give the 3-2-1 votes, and at the end of the season, probably the week of the bye between the finals and the season finishing, we'll be doing a live countdown of the Boundary Riders votes, and then we'll have the second ever winner of the Boundary Riders medal. The first winner was Zach Butters, for people who are wondering. But let's get to the votes for this game. So, the 3 votes went to Jamie Elliott, 2 votes to Dane Zorko, and the 1 vote went to Lachie Neale. Jamie Elliott had a brilliant game here. He needed to have a good game because he's been pretty down on form at the start of the season, like most of the Collingwood players have been. It's not like he's been alone. But he, I think, dragged them over the line throughout the whole game. Even when they weren't in the best of form, he was the most dangerous forward for Collingwood, and a couple of goals that he kicked were brilliant, and he kicked 4 goals, and he's going to have to continue his form to keep Collingwood in the hunt for that top 4 finish. So that's why Jamie Elliott got the 3 votes in the end. But guys, before we get into this video, BR Designs, our very own design company, is your one-stop shop for all your AFL prints. We have designs for every single team, so make sure to head down to the description below, head over to BR Designs, and make sure to find your desired AFL design. And make sure to use our unique features with our design of scanning your QR code will actually bring up on your phone the highlight that you have the design for. And also, before you check out, make sure to use code YouTube for 10% off your purchase for the next 48 hours. So getting quick, guys, let's get back into the video. But let's move to the next game, North Melbourne v Carlton. Of course, the Good Friday appeal game. And despite North Melbourne playing okay in the first half, end of the day, Carlton flexed their muscles towards the end and kicked a lot of goals in this one, so that's good for the Good Friday appeal. And they won by 56 points. Final score was 137 to Carlton, 81 to North Melbourne. Now, the top scorers for this game, Terry Mackay with the 5 goals, Charlie Kerner with the 4, 9 goals between them. And I think me and my brother mentioned this at the start of the year. If those 2 can fire and kick 60 plus goals each, they're going to be hard to beat throughout the whole season. They are arguably premiership favourites at the moment, Carlton, very early on. A couple of injuries in this game. Callum Coleman-Jones turned quite awkwardly. I wasn't sure if that had anything to do with the injury because it was an Achilles, but he just went down so quickly. It was such an innocuous sort of circumstance, and he had to be stretched off the ground. So it's really unfortunate for Callum Coleman-Jones. Never really got a good run at it. Obviously, that's to do with injury and form. He obviously started at Richmond, then went to North Melbourne to try and get some extra game time, and he's kind of struggled to get it. So really unfortunate for him. I think he is a good prospect, and hopefully he can come back to some good form when he returns from his injury. Caleb Marchbank clashed with a teammate and then landed heavily in the game. Had to be walked off the ground by the medicos. Luckily, didn't look like to have hurt his neck. I know that has been an injury concern for Caleb Marchbank for a lot of his career, but hopefully he is good. So, like I said, North Melbourne started okay in this game. I think they were in front at one stage early in the first quarter, but then Carlton kind of eased into it throughout the end of the first term and towards the second. And then by the time it hit half-time, we kind of knew what was going to happen. Carlton took a little bit easy in the first quarter and a half, I thought. North Melbourne couldn't take their chances. I know there was a bit contentious on the umpiring, but they gave away six 50-metre penalties to North Melbourne, which really isn't good enough. But I did watch the game, and the umpiring at stages was pretty poor, I will say that. But it has been the whole season, so what else are we talking about? But to the game itself, North Melbourne, they did okay. I did like the game of Tom Powell. Harry Sheezel, of course, had a pretty good game. A lot of other players just a little bit down. Davies Uniacke played a really poor first half. I think there was a lot of players going to him at the clearances, so he found it hard to find some space, but he had a pretty poor sort of game. Nick Larkey had some moments, but he was well held and got a bit frustrated at times. And the one thing I do want to talk about as well is North's depleted backline conceded over 5 goals in every single quarter, and they're going to struggle this season, North Melbourne, against the tall targets. But let's move to Carlton, because they were pretty good in this game as well. Charlie Curnow, Mackay, they took all the advantages they had to against North's depleted defence. They did brilliantly. They kicked 9 goals between them. Mackay was getting in between the arcs. He was taking some really good contested marks. He's finally got his goal-kicking boots on. He's had struggles in the past few years, but he did really well in this game. Didn't look like he had any concerns at all. So that's really good to see for Carlton fans. Elijah Hollins, he doesn't actually get into the votes in this game, but he had a really good performance in his first game for Carlton. In the end, he had 22 touches, 5 tackles, and kicked a goal. So really good performance from him. Good to see him playing some good football. But let's get to the statistics. Harry Sheezel, top scorer with the 126 in the AFL Fantasy front. Harry Mackay with the 120. Hewitt with the 107 along with Elijah Hewitt. Adam Cherry with the 106 and Tom Powell with the 103. And then we get to the Boundary Riders votes. So the 3 votes in this game went to Harry Mackay, 2 votes went to Charlie Curnow, and the 1 vote went to George Hewitt. I really loved George Hewitt's game, especially when the game was there to be won, when it was a lot more contested in the first 2 quarters and a bit. I thought George Hewitt was their best performer in the midfield, so to speak, and that's why I gave him the 1 vote. After that, let's move to the Friday night game, Fremantle v Adelaide. And Freo, despite missing a lot of chances throughout most of this game, they broke away late and won by 35 points. Final score was Fremantle 69 to the Crows 34. A couple of injury concerns. One of them was to Wayne Miller. He went up in a marking contest in the back 50, and as he landed, he immediately grabbed for his knee. Didn't look like it was like a hyperextension in my opinion, but as soon as you grab for the knee when you land, you know there's something pretty serious going on. I believe he's actually missed a whole season before with a knee injury or a very serious injury, so I really hope that's not the case, especially for the Crows, because he does give them some good run and a bit of grunt in the half-back area, so that'd be a really big loss for the Crows, and unfortunately it looks like he's going to be out for quite a while. And another one was Lockie Murphy. He actually started as the sub, came on in the 3rd term, didn't have a lot of impact, if I'm being honest. And then he had a knee injury late in the game, I believe. I don't think it's as serious as Miller's injury, so he may be ready for next week, but we'll just have to wait and see. He's pretty down on form as well, so that's also another concern for Lockie Murphy. Let's move to the game. Now, the Crows started off this game quite well. It looked almost dominant at stages, but they just didn't take their chances in the first term. They kicked 2-goal-5, and that's been a story of the Crows. Not so much the goal kicking, but just going inside the forward 50 hasn't been great. Now kicking on goal wasn't the greatest either. I mean, ending on 4 goals, 10 isn't that great. So they kicked half their score in the first quarter, which we'll get into in a minute. But Freo were able to stay in touch. They kicked 2 goals themselves. Second term, Adelaide started okay, but then Freo started to take control. But kind of like Adelaide in the first term, they couldn't take their chances either. They kicked 2-goal-5 Freo in the second term. Freo did start to dominate in the 3rd term, but again, actually took less of their chances, if that's even hard to say. I felt like they dominated more in the 3rd than in the 2nd, but they only kicked 1-goal-5, and it kept the Crows in it. At 3-quarter time, they were only up by 10 points. But they finally took control. They finally took their chances as well, Fremantle, in the last quarter. Broke away to win the game pretty convincingly in the end. And not only did they win this game by 35 points, Fremantle's defence to lock down the most potent forward line of 2023 to just 4 goals is a wonderful effort. So Fremantle, we've always kind of known that they've been a really good defensive team. So obviously on this side of it, they only kicked 69 points, but they kicked 9 goal 15. If they can improve on the accuracy of their goal kicking, they really should have won this game by, nearly 10 plus goals because they really dominated that second half. Let's move on to the statistics. So AFL Fantasy, top scorer was Hayden Young with the 129, Sarong with the 118, Ryan with the 112, Walters with the 110, Laird with the 102, and then Dawson with the 100, rounding out the top 6, I believe. And now we'll get to the votes. So, 3 votes in this game went to Hayden Young, 2 votes to Alex Pearce, and the 1 vote to Liam Ryan. Now, as I've mentioned a couple of times in the review episodes, just because a player is not the top fantasy scorer or not the highest disposal getter on the ground doesn't mean they're not going to be involved in the votes. We do it a little bit differently. Sometimes a player who has a little bit more impact, like not so much on the stat sheet, but has a really good game like Alex Pearce did in this one, they will get into the votes. And Alex Pearce, not only did he do really well to help his back 6, getting intercept marks and intercept possessions and spoils, but he kept his opponent, Taylor Walker, to 0 goals. And as we know last year, Taylor Walker can get a huge bag of goals in a game. Alex Pearce was brilliant in this game. He was very close to getting 3 votes. If it wasn't for Hayden Young in the second half, he would have been getting 3 votes, Alex Pearce, but I did give Hayden Young the 3 votes. I do think he deserved it, but Alex Pearce just have to give his kudos because he played a brilliant game for Fremantle. So now let's move to the Easter Saturday clashes, guys. And first off, on Saturday evening, we had St Kilda versus Essendon. And despite St Kilda leading for the majority of this game, Essendon came back in the end, I think with about 3 or 4 minutes to play, and stole the show. Won in the end, 71 to St Kilda, 67. Massive comeback from Essendon in the end. The game was quite close all game, but St Kilda had the lead for the majority of it. But towards the end of the game, it kind of felt like St Kilda were trying to hold the game while Essendon went the winner, and in the end, Essendon were able to prevail. Top goal scorers in the end were Kyle Langford and Jake Stringer, both with the 3 goals. There was one injury in this game to Sam Durham. It was a shoulder injury. Looks like he may have dislocated his shoulder. It was a tough tackle that happened, landed awkwardly, and was subbed out in the 3rd term. So very disappointing for Sam Durham because he's been very important for them for the past few years, basically since being picked up in the mid-season draft. So he's really important for their run, and interested to see if he will play next week in Gather Round. But let's get to the game itself. St Kilda, not only for the first quarter, but basically the first half, were the dominant team, but they just couldn't take their chances. And to be honest, the Essendon edge, or whatever they want to call it, looked a lot more flaccid in the first half than it did in the second half. There were times in the first half where St Kilda had absolutely no pressure and just waltzing through D50 all the way to forward 50. And it has been a question mark of Essendon being not defensive enough when they lose the ball. But in the second half, it became quite more of a tight contest. In the third, St Kilda still had a lot of the momentum, but couldn't take their chances. And Essendon just did enough to stay close enough. And in the last quarter, the Saints, like I said, tried to save the game, but the Bombers went to go win it. And that's really what cost St Kilda in the end. Bombers did really well, kicked a couple of late goals. Jake Stringer really rose to the occasion in the last quarter. Massive goal from outside 50. And Essendon in the end were able to hold on by 4 points. So great performance from Essendon in the end. This is a lot more of a better performance if this is the Essendon edge that we're going to see. A lot more defensive pressure. If they can bring it for 4 quarters through most of the season, I think they can play finals, Essendon, if they play like that. If they go with the Essendon edge of this brute sort of football that they played against Sydney, I don't think it's going to really work for them. We will have to wait and see, though. Moving on to the statistics of this game. Top scorer was Nick Martin with the 145. We'll talk about his game in a second. Dyson Heppel with the 129. Riley Bonner with the 127. And the record as well for the most ever turnovers in a game of football with 17 turnovers out of his 32 possessions. So not very good from Riley Bonner in the end. But let's be honest, it's all about the AFL fantasy score here on this channel. Who cares if you make 17 turnovers as long as you have a high fantasy score? Honestly, joking. Anyway, Jack Steele with the 122, Andy McGrath with the 116, and Rowan Marshall with the 113, rounding out the top 6 of the fantasy scorers. So we get to the votes. 3 votes I gave to Zach Merritt, 2 votes to Nick Martin, and the 1 vote to Rowan Marshall. Now, I know that Nick Martin had, 44 touches in the end, But they even mentioned it in the commentary, and I tend to agree with this. He didn't have a lot of influence on the game for a lot of it. I think in the last quarter he was a lot more influential, and I think that was the least amount of disposals he had in the game. I still think he had a very good game. That's why I gave him the 2 votes. But I just felt like Zach Merrett throughout the afternoon had a lot more impact on the game for Essendon, especially in that last quarter when they were forging their comeback. I felt like Zach Merrett was the real catalyst to get them to the win in the end. But yeah, that's basically the votes for that game, guys. So we'll get to the other Saturday game on Easter Saturday, which was Port Adelaide v Melbourne. Saturday night, massive clash between 2 teams fighting for final spots at the end of the season, I would imagine. And Melbourne were able to run over the top of Port Adelaide in the last quarter and go on to win by 7 points. 96 to Melbourne, 89 to Port Adelaide. Ben Brown was the top scorer in this game with 3 goals. Great performance from him in the end. And if he can keep that sort of form, averaging 2 to 3 goals a game for Melbourne this year, they can definitely push up towards finals where they should be heading. Looking at the game itself, Port Adelaide had a brilliant start. They kicked the first 3 goals of the game. Then Melbourne quickly responded. They got the next 3 goals, and Port Adelaide got 1 goal on the siren to get themselves in front at quarter time. In the second term, the D's started to break away. They think they kicked their first 3 goals of the quarter, but Port Adelaide fought their way back, and at the main break, scores were all square. So it was a really interesting contest. When a team started to break away throughout the whole night, the other team would forge their way back. No one really got a real advantage. Even when Melbourne had the lead towards the end of the game, Port Adelaide still had a couple of opportunities to almost get back in front, but Melbourne just held on in the end. I just want to quickly mention, Travis Boak doesn't get into the votes here, but his first half was magnificent from him. At 351 games, he shouldn't have had that bigger influence on a game of football, but Travis Boak was massive in that first half. I think he was very good for Port, one of their best players in the first half, and he kind of tapered off in the second half, hence why he didn't get into the votes, but a massive performance from him, and he's such a great player, Travis Boak, so really good on him. But back to the game itself, it was tight in the third term. Like I said, every team, when they tried to break away, they fought back. A really good contested game of football, and in the last quarter, the D's, they got away in the early advantages. They kicked the first couple of goals, and despite Port Adelaide getting themselves back into the game halfway through the quarter, the Demons broke away late to win by 7 points. So let's get to the statistics of this game. Max Gawn top scored with the 146, Neil Bullen with the 105, Willem Drew with the 104, Ivan Soldo with the 103, Rosie with the 99, and then Clayton Oliver with the 94. And now we'll get to the votes. Now, usually they're not the exact same order as the AFL Fantasy score, but in this game, I thought this was good read of the best 3 players on the ground. The 3 votes in this game went to Max Gawn, 2 votes to Alex Neil-Bullen, and the 1 vote went to Willem Drew. Now, I do want to quickly mention, I think the umpiring in the game was pretty atrocious. A little bit more on Melbourne's side, but there were a couple of decisions going Port Adelaide's way that I thought were pretty dog shit as well, especially the Connor Rosie reversal. I don't think there was much in it at all. I thought that was pretty crap, and I think that's happened a lot, so that was pretty bull crap. But there were a lot of other times. I think it was Ben Brown dropped the ball in the forward 50, when through the fourth quarter, I believe, and just dropped it on the ground. Umpire didn't call a free kick, and Melbourne went on to score a goal in that passage of play. So I think the umpiring standard in this whole season has been pretty terrible so far. And we also saw another instance in this game where a boundary umpire had pretty good vision on the Willowioli mark in the pocket. That was a metre out of bounds. So that's 3 times this year where it's been blatant calls that the umpires have just got wrong, and the boundary umpire. But the goal umpires have been pretty bad this season as well. I think there was an instance in the St Kilda Essendon game where the ball was called touched on the line and the ball was nowhere near touched. I think the standard of umpiring has gone really far down, especially at the start of the year. And I really hope that it starts to pick up, but I'm not exactly holding my breath on that. Now let's get to the first game on Easter Sunday, Bulldogs versus the West Coast Eagles. And despite the Eagles having an okay start to this game in the first quarter, the Bulldogs did what they had to do in the end and pretty much smashed the Eagles 106-30. The top scorer in the end was Marcus Bontempelli with 3 goals in the end, kicked 2 late goals as well. Going to the game itself, it was an interesting start. The West Coast Eagles started quite nicely. The Bulldogs only took a slight lead into quarter time, but then for the remainder of the game, it went the Dogs' way. I think they kicked 15 of the last 16 goals in the game and only won in the end by 76 points, basically playing in first gear for the majority of the contest. And they shared around the goals. Bontempelli did kick the 3 goals, but a lot of other multiple goal scorers as well. And Norton and Ugelhagen, I think, only got 1 each. So good to see them getting some different goal scorers on the board. The Eagles did have their chances not to say they'd win the game, but they did have 15 scoring shots, but they only kicked 3 goals from it. And they kicked 2 of those goals in the first quarter. I think at the 18th minute mark, they scored their second goal. And then midway through the last quarter, they got their third goal from Jamie Cripps, who, by the way, kicked 1 goal 5 in the game. So if he straightened up, he could have had a massive 6-goal performance, but didn't kick straight. It's the way that West Coast are going to go this season. It is pretty unfair for the AFL competition to have a team like West Coast at the moment. Even North Melbourne are showing better signs than West Coast. They did have a couple of promising signs. Harley Reid was okay, had some moments. Jinby looked good in the middle. Elliot Yeo and Jeremy McGovern as the experienced players played pretty good games as well for the Eagles. But there's just so many downfalls of their game at the moment, and they're just going to struggle for the majority of the season. They come up against the Swans next week in Gather Round. We'll see how they go there. Maybe in a different game. It's a neutral ground for both of them. Maybe they'll give a little bit more of a fight. I don't know. But it's a very disappointing start for the Eagles. And look, there's not a lot to say about the Bulldogs. They just do what they had to do in this game. They just flogged West Coast by 76 points in first gear. No injury concerns from the game. So Western Bulldogs just take a good win going into next week with an interesting game up against the Cats. Let's get to the statistics. Top scorer in the AFL Fantasy front was Adam Treloar. Bailey Williams with the 108. Jeremy McGovern with the 105 along with Elliot Yeo. Vandermeer with the 104. Duggan with the 104. And Bailey Dale with the 102. Now let's get to the votes. The 3 votes in this game went to Adam Treloar. 2 votes to Jason Johannesson. And the 1 vote went to Tim English. So next up, guys, we get to the Richmond v Sydney game, and a pretty big upset, probably the biggest upset we've had of the season so far. Richmond went on to win by 5 points against the Swans, 82-77. A big win for Richmond, their first win of the season, and first win under new coach Adam Uze. And I've got to say, even though I'm a Swans fan, Richmond deserved to win this game. They played some really good football. Their pressure was insanely high for the majority of the game, especially in the second half. They were massive. A 5-goal third quarter really broke the game, and they were able to hold on in the final quarter to win by 5 points. Just looking at it right now, Richmond did really well in the first quarter. They probably could have been up by a little bit more, only led by the 2 goals at quarter time. Sydney broke right back in the second quarter. They kicked 5 goals to 1. Richmond did have some chances. They kicked 6 behinds in that quarter. I really felt like Richmond were at a point where it looked like the last few weeks where they had some good moments, but I felt like Sydney were going to run over the top of them here. But Richmond really fought back in the third quarter. Sydney kicked the first goal of the third term, but Richmond went on to kick 5 goals in a row and took a really good lead in the 3-quarter time. And then again, Sydney really fought back early in the last quarter. But then Richmond kicked 1 goal midway through the quarter, and it was a real big struggle for the last 10 or 15 minutes. Sydney got a late goal through Errol Goulden, but they weren't able to get a late goal. And yeah, Richmond held on for 5 points. A massive performance from them in the end. It was a really good game of football. I thought one of the better games we've seen this season. And Richmond's pressure, like I said, was immense for the majority of the game. So you have to give them credit for that. Now, look, there are a couple of decisions in the game where I'm going to sit there and say it wasn't the greatest umpiring on both sides. There was a chance where Chad Warner dropped the ball in the last quarter and the umpire did not go a hole in the ball, which was just crap. And on the other end, the Tom Papley high tackle against Nick Vlausten was ridiculous. It wasn't high. I don't know how the umpire called that whatsoever. I was pretty pissed off sitting there watching the game itself in that situation, but the umpiring standard in this season's been fucking atrocious, but we'll keep out of that. And just the one injury concern, I forgot to mention it earlier, but Dane Rampy was subbed out at halftime with hamstring tightness. I'm unsure if he'll be out for next week for Gather Round. I think they'll leave him out against West Coast. But let's move to the statistics. And on the AFL Fantasy front, Tim Taranto top scored with the 132, Isaac Heaney with the 127, Vlausten with the 126, Liam Baker with the 113, James Rowbottom with the 109, Jake Lloyd with the 107, rounding out the top 6 players for AFL Fantasy. And now let's move to the votes for this game, the Boundary Riders votes. So the 3 votes in this game went to Nick Vlausten, 2 votes went to Tim Taranto, and the 1 vote went to Shea Bolton. Now there are a couple of people fighting for this 1 vote. I was thinking Isaac Heaney or James Rowbottom on the Sydney side, and Liam Baker as well was close to getting this 1 vote. But I just felt like throughout the rest of the game that Shea Bolton was the real catalyst in this game. And every single time where I felt like Richmond had to get back into the game when Sydney was starting to charge, that Shea Bolton stood up really well. So hence why he got the 1 vote. And Nick Vlausten, what a game he played. He had 29 touches. He had 100% disposal efficiency as well. Had some really big moments in that last quarter when he needed to stand up, playing as that loose man in defence. Really annoyed that Sydney didn't man him up earlier. And when they did man him up in the late stages, Sydney actually started to get it forward. And I think that was one of the big reasons why they got that goal through Goulden. Nick Vlausten was the best player on the ground, I felt, and hence why he got the 3 votes. Let's get to the final game of the round, guys. And what an interesting game it was. on and off the field. But in the end, the Cats were able to run away winners by 36 points, 106 to 70 Hawthorn. There were a couple of injuries in the game, but I don't believe they're too concerning. One of them was to Stewart, the other one was to Hawkins, but both of them came on and ran out the rest of the game, so hopefully they are all good there for gather round against the Bulldogs. Looking at the game itself, though, the Cats absolutely dominated the first quarter, up by 7-1 in the first, and it kind of felt like this would be a pretty big flogging. However, the Hawks came right back in the second term, only down by less than 2 goals at half-time, so they really fought out hard, probably the biggest they've really fought. I would say other than in round one, they were pretty good for 3 quarters, and then Essendon just ran over the top. But in the third term, like I said, a bit of carnage on Geelong's end with Hawkins and Stewart coming off, but they were able to run out the game. So luckily, everything was all good there. Geelong had a pretty good lead at 3-quarter time, and then the rain delay happened, or the lightning storms. So they had a 45-minute delay on this game, which is pretty significant. We've had a couple of these sort of situations happen in the past. I think it happened in the pre-season as well between Brisbane and Sydney. And a couple of years ago, I think it was in 2015 or 16, GWS and Sydney game was delayed by a certain period due to bad lights. So this was more a lightning storm. 45 minutes later, they came back on. And interestingly enough, Hawthorn started this quarter really well. They had an early goal in the first 30 seconds to Jack Ginnivan, and then Nick Watson kicked the goal about halfway through the quarter, which made it look like Hawthorn were about to charge back and potentially steal the game. But the Cats kicked 3 straight goals in the game to keep themselves, well in front. Hawthorn did have quite a few scoring shots in the last quarter, but they just couldn't take their chances. And Geelong were able to run away winners by 36 points. So another good win for the Cats, and they are 3-0 going into gather round. So really good start to the season for the Cats. And if they can continue this sort of form, they will probably make finals this year and could even cause some carnage in the finals at the end of the year. But let's move to the statistics of the game now. And on the AFL Fantasy front, James Worpel top scored with the 149. Massive game from him. Tom Stewart with the 110. Duncan with the 106. Dempsey with the 102, along with Parfitt with the 102. And then Connor Nash with the 100, rounding out the top 6. And let's get to the votes. Now, my brother, Jack, who's on the podcast, actually gave the votes for this game because he watched a lot more of it. Because I was just having to edit the podcast that we recorded a little bit earlier today. But my brother has given James Worpel the 3 votes, 2 votes to Brendan Parfitt, and the 1 vote to Tom Hawkins. Now, he's given a little bit of a breakdown as to why he's given which player what. So he said that James Worpel, he had 35 touches, 8 tackles, 6 clearances, and also 843 metres gained, which is quite a lot for a midfielder. And he was one of the few Hawthorn players in the game that played clean, especially when it got into the wet weather football later in the game. So I can understand that. Now, if you did see it very early on, we did post it on Instagram. My brother did give Tanner Bruin the 2 votes, but he actually changed it. He did say the reason why. He said that Brendan Parfitt had the 10 tackles in this game and had 21 disposals. When the game was there to be won, he did say that he was one of the main reasons, one of the catalysts in the midfield. It really helped the Cats, go forward to win this game. And then for Tom Hawkins, he said that he kicked the 4 goals and he really bullied the 2 tall defenders for Hawthorn, hence why he got the 1 vote. But that's basically all the votes for that game, guys. Basically all the coverage that we have for this week's review episode for round 3. Now, we'll just quickly say round 4, obviously, with Gather Round. I don't know if you know, but I live in South Australia, so me and my brother will be going to the majority of the games. So there will not be a live stream this week, unfortunately, because we'll obviously be at the games. And the review episode may come out a little bit later, maybe on Monday. I'm still going to try and get it out on Monday morning, but at this stage, yeah, it may be out a little bit later. But, of course, I'm going to be enjoying the football, so I feel like you guys would understand. So, guys, that's basically all we have here for the review of Round 3. If you did enjoy it, make sure to leave it a like if you are watching on YouTube and subscribe. Really thankful that you guys have got us to 500 subs. I really do appreciate it. Really pushing hard for 1,000 subscribers by the end of the AFL season. So, if you guys can help out with that, send this to a friend, all that sort of stuff, that'd be great. Really appreciate it. And over on Spotify, we are releasing these on audio platform as well. So, if you are listening over there, make sure to leave us 5 stars. And also make sure to leave a follow so you're notified on the reviews and the podcast. But that's all from me though, so we'll catch you all next week.